It's an interesting time for the club.
Hi, son. I hope you're okay.
But that's
fair enough, dude.
They didn't spend 200 million to be sitting 8th in the table.
Whether you spend it on one guy, two guys, three.
You spend that sort of money because you want to compete for the title.
which is a sentence I never thought I would ever say in my life.
Probably numb to it now because it's been happening for 15 years.
Frankly, they're just running out of managers.
Doing well at PSG doesn't mean you're a good manager. If you don't do well, you're a bad manager.
Dude, Pochettino signed for PSG in 2 days. He won a trophy.
We need a half a season guy
Thumbs up. Go for it.
because he's the only person I've ever known to eat cigarettes.
I think that guy was fantastic for Chelsea.
Must be all the black money. They didn't factor that in.
SIPG.
yeah.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of All About Sports, the podcast. Do check out our episode last week where we talked to Zoeb Khan, who is a footballer in India, has a lot of experience playing in a few teams across India. Really enlightening conversation of the state in Indian football and where we can move forward. This week we're kind of continuing in our Premier League deep dives of the historical top four, the traditional top four, so to speak. And this week we're going to dig into Chelsea. You have your usual hosts, Aniket, Shubham, and myself, Rishabh. But we're also joined by another special guest this week, Rehan, Dadachanji, aka Dada. He's a huge Chelsea fan. From our episode with where we deep dive into Liverpool. If you did listen, we had one of the co-founders of Starter Labs. So Dada is actually the other co-founder of Starter Labs. So we trying to be innovative on this podcast as much as we can be. He's also the captain. He was also the captain of the Bombay Gym football team and has represented them in the Singa Cup in Singapore. Dada, thank you so much for joining. Right off the bat, how are you doing and how are you feeling about the state of Chelsea Football Club and the recent hiring of Thomas Tuchel and I guess firing of Frank Lampard?
All good. Firstly, thank you guys. I really and have enjoyed your podcasts in the past, so I'm glad to be a part of this one. And thanks for that nice, big, deep intro. And getting right into Chelsea, it's an interesting time for the club. Initial reactions of Lampard getting sacked actually wasn't too much of a shock because there'd been rumors going around for a week or so before that. If it happened 1 week before, I suppose a lot of the fan base would have been a bit surprised. But because of those rumors coming in, backed by, of course, every Chelsea fan knows the history of Abramovich and of the club. And then the second part of, I'm sure we'll discuss Lampard also in a little bit of detail, but initial thoughts on Tuchel, it seems like a good fit. It seems like the right appointment. If you look at the other managers out there, I can't think of too many who would have been a better fit for Chelsea. And he has a history of fighting with the boards, which might not work well because I don't think Abramovich is an easy person to work with. But that being said, from what they're saying, it seems like an 18-month contract with then a potential 1-year add-on post that. So hopefully that's enough time. When you come to Chelsea, you're not there for 5 years and 10 years. You're there for a short term. You've got to be successful in that short term. Otherwise, you're out. Even if you're successful, you're probably out anyway. So it has to be a short stint.
Definitely. I definitely don't recommend any Chelsea manager buying a house. Definitely rent. Never ever buy.
So Dada, what I wanted to know is, obviously you guys got Lampard in, and Lampard became Chelsea manager after just 57 games in charge with Derby, and with Derby he had, I think, in the league he finished sixth in the league, but he went on to the playoff finals. So okay, fair enough, decent experience for him. But after just 57 games, he comes on as Chelsea manager, and in the second season he gets 200 million to spend. So two questions. First, do you think he should have been appointed as Chelsea manager in the first place, or he should have probably gotten some more experience? And secondly, what do you think has been Lampard's performance like, specifically this season? Only this season, where do you think he faltered and how's it been?
Yeah, fair enough. Should he have been appointed? I think at that time the answer was yes, with the assumption that Sarri was going out. Because I don't think too many managers wanted to touch Chelsea at that point. They had the transfer ban. Everyone knew Eden Hazard was out by then. And I think it would have been ideal if Sarri had continued because, he did all right. Came third, won the Europa League. And he did okay. He just lost in the League Cup final to Man City. Not the worst season. It was a decent season. So there weren't too many managers out there. Lampard seemed to have been a good fit. And you have to say on the basis of his first season, he did a good job, right? So he worked for that first season. And I think if you break up Lampard's managerial career within Chelsea into 2 seasons, it was two completely different projects that he had. So the first season, the project that he effectively had was make sure that the club doesn't crumble, or the football side of the club doesn't crumble. Make sure we do okay. Make sure that whatever we have in the squad performs. I don't even think it was imperative that he got into the top four. Maybe if he finished fifth or sixth with Chelsea, fans would have still said, "Yeah, he's done all right. He's not done. He's not done too bad." That the one thing that he missed was that final against Arsenal, where Arsenal beat Chelsea in the FA Cup.
FA
I
Cup,
think
yeah.
if he won that, I don't know, maybe that would have given him a few more weeks at the job. Would have given him a little bit, because maybe the management would say that, listen, this guy has a history of, not a history of winning trophies, but he has won a trophy with us, so maybe he can do that in the future. But just judging by the results of this season, Shubham, as you asked, definitely not good enough. I think too far from where Chelsea should have been. Uh, at one point, Chelsea were, I think, amongst the top 2-3 clubs for quite some time. At the start of December, Chelsea were top of the table, if I'm not mistaken. And right now, Chelsea are 8th, and there are teams 9th, 10th, 11th who have games on them. So Chelsea could actually be 10th by in the next week or so.
No,
So that being said, I think Lampard this season hasn't done a great job.
No, you make a great point, and I think it has been a very, very topsy-turvy season. And I wanted to ask you, I think Frank Lampard is one of the few managers who had kind of a project that involved a good amount of youth development. We haven't historically seen too much of that, and we've got some nice pieces now in, Mason Mount, Gilmore, if he ends up, coming up to becoming Reece James as well. So what do you think is the current state of the Chelsea squad? How do you think the squad itself is? How do you think it's developed under Frank Lampard and for Tuchel to take over?
Yeah, I think the squad's actually an incredible squad. If you look at Chelsea and bench them against maybe barring a Man City or perhaps a Liverpool, I don't see too many squads in the Premier League or probably in world football that are as exciting, at least, as Chelsea's. And the good thing is, Chelsea finished fourth and had a decent season without this 200 million, without your Mendy's and Thiago Silva's. And what the beautiful thing is, so if you look back to when Liverpool signed Van Dijk in one window, then they signed Alisson. Chelsea theoretically fixed all their problems in this window. They had Kepa underperforming. Okay, you sign Mendy. You needed a centre back. You get Thiago Silva. You need an attack. You get 4 attackers. You get a striker. You get a couple of wingers. You get an attacking mid. So pretty much everything that a manager could ask for. Now, maybe Lampard didn't ask for that. Maybe this was too much for Lampard. If Lampard got no money to spend, and then Chelsea were in 8th position, maybe he'd still be in the job. But the fact of the matter is, whether it was his decision or not, Chelsea spent that money. Chelsea spent 200 million. They didn't spend 200 million to be sitting 8th in the table. So there was every possibility that Lampard was going to go.
So one thing which I just like to highlight is forget getting 200 million to spend. There's barring Pep Guardiola, there's not another manager in the league who has a transfer window go as per his liking, right? And that's one excuse which I think is more of a fan excuse, that he didn't have his players, so to speak. And I'll be honest, I've given that excuse a few times. But 200 million is an absurd amount to spend. Whether you spend it on one guy, 2 guys, 3, doesn't really matter. And you kind of pick 2 of the biggest talents of the Bundesliga, like Dada already mentioned, right? You kind of find the fix for every problem you're facing, and to still not go your way. I mean, what 5 games out of the last 8 were a loss for Chelsea before Lampard got the boot. And I'm very sure if there were fans in the stadium, sacked in the morning would have been absolutely ringing because we're talking about a Chelsea manager, right? Any other club, you probably expect more patience. At Chelsea, I don't think so. And it's kind of the cards you get dealt when you decide to manage a club like Chelsea.
That's true. Yeah, and just like further to your point, a lot of Chelsea fans said, "Oh, shocked, Lampard's out of the club." And it's a typical syndrome, like how Arteta and Ole at their clubs also, because to some extent they were players of the club and fan favorites. So a lot of Chelsea fans are saying, shocked, how could he get sacked? He was such a great. I don't think it's surprising that he got sacked. Maybe it could be sad and fair enough. Seems like he really loves the club, etc. But it's like for you guys as Arsenal fans, you're surprised that Xhaka goes and gets a red card. It's going to happen. Abramovich does it. This is what he does. He gets managers out who don't perform. It shouldn't be so much of a shock.
That's
So, a couple of things for all our viewers and listeners in terms of the sort of backing that Lampard got. Since Abramovich has taken over Chelsea, I think this was the 2020 window was perhaps the most expensive window for them when they spent 200 odd million. Before that, there was Ranieri in 2003 when they spent 111 million pounds, Conte 2016, 118 million pounds, Sarri 2018, 118 million pounds again, and Lampard was back to 200 million pounds. So definitely, I would say the board backed him. But what I feel is like a manager who doesn't have that much experience to give him the burden of 200 million. I think that was one of the reasons for his downfall, because like Dada mentioned, you don't spend 200 millions to be eighth in the team or eighth in the league. You spend that sort of money because you want to compete for the title. But another thing, Dada, on our Instagram, we ran a poll after Lampard got sacked that was it the correct decision or should he have been given more time along those lines? And a lot of Chelsea fans said that yes, he should have been given more time. Now we all know how it is under Abramovich. If you're not getting the results, he gets you out of the club. And another thing, what I would like to say is, I think Abramovich, based on his standards, gave Lampard a lot of time. Because some other managers, like for example AVB, he was sacked after just 27 games, and his points per game was 1.70. Scolari was sacked after 25 games, points per game was 1.96. Lampard was sacked after 57 games. So he was given those 50 additional games, and his points per game was 1.67, which is the lowest since Abramovich has taken over the club. So what I want to know from you, Dada, is if you keep the emotional aspect aside, that Lampard is our legend, he's a great and stuff like that, do you think he deserved to be sacked?
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, he got a lot of games, so that's because Chelsea performed very well in his first season. It's not like Chelsea had been so bad under Lampard throughout. The conversation about Chelsea being bad under Frank Lampard is 2 months old. So from that perspective, maybe. And people look at the league and say, like, what's happening with Man United? From nowhere, they've suddenly come top of the league. Arsenal, from relegation, now people are talking about them as top 4 contenders. So that's the only argument that I feel is perhaps relevant to saying that, okay, maybe he should have been given another 5 games, 7 games, 10 games. But what I would also say is, barring a handful of games this season, Chelsea has never looked like a team that, you'd be scared to play against. That, Chelsea would go and take the game to a Liverpool or Man City or a United or anybody for that matter. Their losses against most of the top 10 teams, or at least not victories in those games. And even if you looked at the start of the season, the few matches which Chelsea won, scraped through, there have been a couple of 3-all draws against teams who are pretty much in the relegation zone now. So it's not like they had a spectacular season. So judging by just this season, I don't think Abramovich was generous with him. But that being said, I don't think it should come as a huge shock to us that he got Lampard out when Chelsea are in this position.
And I want to jump in defense of Roman Abramovich, which is a sentence I never thought I would ever say in my life. But the fact of the matter is, Chelsea operate on a different model than maybe a lot of the Premier League top sides. Youth development and building a team over a 5-year horizon is not really their structure. It's more like a Real Madrid structure of bring in the best players right now and compete for a title pretty much every season, because he has the financial ability to do that. And let's face it, from the time he's taken over in 2003, I would argue Chelsea has been the most consistently good team in the Premier League. If you ask me this question in 2014, the answer would definitely be United. If you ask me it today, it has to be Chelsea, because they have really gone, at most, they go 4 seasons without winning a title from 2003. And unlike Liverpool, for sure Arsenal, for sure United, there hasn't been this sudden lull where they have to grow back from nothing. And I want to kind of also make the point that I think points per game is kind of a deceptive stat in the modern Premier League, because barring the teams at the top, say the last few seasons, Liverpool and Manchester City, the 3 and 4 aren't really accruing the high points that they were in from 2010 or even 2005 to maybe 2013. Because from 1 and 2 onwards, the drop-off is really high in points per game because teams are just not performing. Even this year is such a topsy-turvy season where the reason why Chelsea's gone from second to, where they are now is teams are just number what this season, even 1, 2, 3, 4. aren't getting as many points as they historically have been getting. So I think a lot of Ibrahimovic's conditions for keeping them on is literally position. It has to be position in the league, has to be high, and there has to be a trajectory within your first 2 seasons, I think, to win. Or else it doesn't make sense, because at the end of the day, he's getting experienced players. He's not. This is the first time we have like a Reece James and a Mason Mount. But other than that, he's bringing in like super experienced players whose timeline is win now.
Yeah, and Reece James and Mason Mount broke into the England squad. So let's be honest, they, as much as you call them like youth players and academy graduates, they're really good. They are probably one of the best players to come out of the Chelsea academy. Even though historically Chelsea's academy has produced a lot of talents who go on to play a lot of football in England. Maybe not with Chelsea specifically, but not okay. They do not play with Chelsea, most of them. But yeah, these you've got to understand, if these two broke into the squad and have remained there in this season, they're really good, right? And Krishnan said it. Roman operates on a different level. So one more thing I'd like to ask Dada about is, you fond of this guy? Because there's news of discussions with other managers while Lampard is still at the club. There's you hear these kind of things, it reduces a fan's attachment towards the club. Like, is this how you want the club you support to be? I get that nobody is supporting a club because uh, what terms the owner operates on, but yeah, there's kind of a lot of sour news around the Lampard sacking in terms, not just Roman, right? I did start this point on Roman, but Lampard not talking to his players, right? There are fringe players who have not been spoken to by. Okay, I get it. It's not his job to hi son, I hope you're okay. I'm not gonna play you ever, but excuse me for that. But he's a player who's operated at the highest level, multiple Premier Leagues, Champions League. He is someone who had a nothing career at West Ham, one good season, goes to Chelsea, makes it into what, our Premier League top 10. Okay, fine, I put that as a place of high honor, but you need to understand that for us, yes, but that's one question I'd like to throw to you. Do you feel some form of disconnect in the way he's operating, at least in this case? And what are your thoughts on someone of Lampard's caliber who's been in the same position as most of his players, treating them the way he has, if that is the case?
Yeah, I was just going to say, if that is the case, well, again, it's perhaps a different, it's a management style. If, for example, if you hear something like that from, let's say, a Jurgen Klopp or a Pep Guardiola, you might be a little surprised. But Jose Mourinho, for example, would be probably the best manager for Chelsea historically. Would that surprise you? Probably not. So I don't know if that's a thing where Lampard, I'm sure Lampard didn't actively say, I hate these guys, I'm never going to speak to them. He probably just didn't feel it was important, or he wasn't able to do it. Maybe he was not experienced enough to do it. So I don't want to speculate too much on that. What you said earlier was interesting in the sense that as a Chelsea fan, how does it affect you the way Abramovich sort of runs the club and deals with managers? And it didn't actually strike me because we're probably numb to it now because it's been happening for 15 years. I remember I was very surprised the first time that Mourinho got sacked, because this was Jose Mourinho we're talking about. He was the only guy to rival Ferguson and Wenger for, God knows how long. We'd never seen it in our lifetime, anyone challenging these two. So that came as a shock. Then slowly you see that, okay, Ancelotti's got sacked few months after winning the league. Then Di Matteo wins the Champions League in May. He doesn't see till Christmas, doesn't see the club at Christmas. He's out by then. So it's not too surprising. What I would say is that most Chelsea fans, I wouldn't say love the model, but would agree with this model because of the success. And you see that you don't go more than 2 years without winning a trophy, and without, as Christian said earlier, 4 years without winning a Premier League or a Champions League, like an actual notable trophy, then it's fine. You know that, okay, the club. And at the end of the day, Abramovich loves Chelsea. He's not some businessman who just sits and doesn't look at it. You see him at games, you see that he cares about the club. And if this is how he has to run it for the club to stay successful, then fair enough. I think that's something that every Chelsea fan has to make peace with.
And
So Dada, what I'd like to ask you now is that Lampard is sacked and new managers come in. You'll have played one game under him, which is a draw.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of people are saying with his German background and some of the biggest players being Germans, he should probably get the best out of them. Um, but also, like you mentioned very initially in the podcast, that he has had conflicts with the board previously, and Chelsea as a club getting into a conflict with the board is not the best idea.
Yeah.
So, what I'd like to ask you is, what do you think of this guy as a new manager? Do you think
Yeah.
it's the right decision? And obviously, there weren't too many options, but do you think he's the right decision to take your club forward? And where do you see your season go from
Yeah.
now on?
Yeah, I definitely think he was a good appointment. Of course, time will tell if he actually is and what he does with Kai Havertz and Timo Werner, for example. But that being said, the moment you said it, I remember that Rafa Benitez was brought into Chelsea and I was saying, oh, Fernando Torres is going to be incredible now. That didn't happen. So I don't know if it's as simplistic to say because he's German and knows these guys will perform well. Hopefully they do. The fact of the matter is that they're good players, so they should do fine. Timo Werner's actually not been a flop throughout. He was quite good at the start. Then he had a real dip. Kai Havertz definitely needs to get into the pace of the Premier League a little bit. Overall, I think it's a good appointment. He seems like he's a good manager. I won't say he's a great manager, even though his CV will say he has 10, 12 trophies. You signed for PSG, you won 4 trophies by the end of the almost.
Exactly.
Dude, Pochettino signed for PSG in 2 days. He won a trophy.
Yeah, there you go. So I don't see that as impressive. People are comparing him to Jurgen Klopp because of the Dortmund history. But
Dortmund, correct.
Jurgen Klopp actually won the league at Dortmund.
Yeah.
Tuchel
I think
won
he won the league twice, like back to back.
Yeah, Dortmund. Klopp won the league twice. This guy Tuchel hasn't won it with Dortmund. He won one of that Pokal Cup or whatever it's called, which fair enough. You beat Bayern and that you deserve that. But it's not like he's come in with some huge, massive pedigree where he's going to hit the ground running. You have to do well at PSG. Doing well at PSG doesn't mean you're a good manager. If you don't do well, you're a bad manager. So, but that being said, he seems to be a good thinker of the game. Whoever talks about him, who has played under him, speaks very well of him. So obviously there is something there. You saw in the Wolves game, of course, too early to really tell, but you can see that he's changing the style. He's not going to say, okay, let's try what Lampard did for a month and then let me try and figure out what's wrong. He has a vision, he has a plan, he knows what he wants to do. At least that's what it looks like so far. But yeah, I think for him to be successful, he's going to have to figure out how to get Chelsea to play a little faster in the final third of the field, start creating chances, start finishing chances, because you don't win a league by creating 1 and 2 chances every game. You need to create a few chances. And
What do you
Chelsea
think
have
will be
decent strikers, but they don't have an Aguero or a Harry Kane where you create a chance and they'll score. You need to create a couple of chances for them to get a goal or two.
In the next few months? Where do you see yourself finishing the league that would be a successful season?
Yeah, I think it would have to be top 4. It can't be anything less than that. I think finishing
Are you
5th
still
isn't
in
the
the FA
success.
Cup?
Yeah, Chelsea is still in the cup. So a late run in the FA Cup, the Champions League, I think is a difficult one. If they get to the, I would say the quarterfinal is not really a mark of success. It's not bad, it's not good. If you get to the semi-final, I'd say that would be really successful because I don't think Chelsea have actually gotten to a Champions League semi-final since with Mourinho in 2013-14. So it's been a long time that Chelsea haven't had a good run in the Champions League, and you don't normally associate that with Chelsea. You think of them as not necessarily contenders to win, but always as going far. But Premier League has to be top 4. I don't think anything less than that would be a successful season. It might be an acceptable season because it's not like he started it. He just has a few months left, but it has to be top 4.
No, and you're right. Yeah, 2013, that's impressive. 2013-14 is the semis, and then after that, it's all been round of 16 or playing in the Europa League.
Yeah.
But I think Chelsea have a similar dilemma to what Real Madrid have. Frankly, they're just running out of managers. Like there are only a certain limit of high-level managers, and if they're not appointed or already appointed, you're just running out of names. I think a big reason why Rafa Benitez was appointed was like, we need a half a season guy. Like this guy's a big name. Let's get him in.
And I'm assuming Tuchel only came because Hiddink said no for the rest of the season.
Yeah, basically. So I wanted to ask you, actually, through the years, you've seen some awesome, iconic managers. I wanted to ask each of you, who do you remember as being the most iconic, not the most successful, the most iconic manager? Let's take Mourinho out of it because the special one is the special one. Barring that, who has been your favorite manager? And Gui, I'll start with you for this one. Who's been your favorite?
Yes.
Just
You put
eccentric
Mourinho,
manager.
you keep Mourinho on the list, and I'm still gonna say Di Matteo. There is no way there is another manager in the Chelsea list who tops that guy. He basically threw all his eggs in one basket and say, you win this. Screw every other competition. Win this one competition. I don't care if Ramirez is playing right back, center back, left center back, goalkeeper, outside the pitch. Do what you feel like. Win this game. And it kind of seemed like he let the players have their own time on the pitch. just please win this game. I have no instructions for you. All right, thumbs up, go for it, win the Champions League, make the Champions League, as in like qualify for the Champions League next year also, and maybe I still have a job. That's all he was there for. That's a true Chelsea fan. Did he play for Chelsea also? He
Yeah,
played for
yeah,
Yeah,
he
Chelsea,
did.
he
right?
played for
Yeah,
Chelsea.
Yeah, see,
he was quite a
see,
successful
he's
player for Chelsea, actually.
correct. So see, he's a true Chelsea lover. He said, just make it to the Champions League. I don't care about my job. Uh, Fine. If that one final, if they lose that one final, I don't know what happens, because that was the first time when Chelsea really had like a big downward dip, right? Uh,
Yeah.
and credits to Mourinho. Say what you want. Di Matteo was the one.
No, perfect. And I remember when they sacked AVB, they were 3-1 down in the first leg against Napoli, if I'm not mistaken.
Napoli.
So
Yeah.
incredible turnaround. Dada, I'm going to save you for last, so you have a little extra time to think about this one. Malu, who would you say is your
So the
favorite?
fact that Mourinho is out, for me, the one Chelsea manager who I really liked was Ancelotti. I think that guy was fantastic for Chelsea. And I think Ancelotti won the league for Chelsea after United had won the league thrice in a row.
Nice. Yeah.
He broke
absolutely.
United's dominance and he came in, he won the league. I think he won the league by 1 point over United. We finished second that season. But I think that guy was brilliant in terms of his tactics, in terms of the way Chelsea played. And yeah, for me, number one is Mourinho. But if we are keeping him out of the list, then definitely Ancelotti. I think, and I feel it was unfair to get him out after just 2 seasons. I think he should have been given a full third season.
No, absolutely right. He's like an offensive genius, like unbelievable. And Dada, finally coming to you, who do you think is the most iconic from your time watching of the Chelsea manager?
Yeah, I would have to agree with and say it is Di Matteo, because he won the Champions League. There's not much. I will give for all the reasons already mentioned. I will give a shout out to Antonio Conte, and I'll tell you why Antonio Conte, because there was a lot of fear within the Chelsea fan bases, at least, that okay, Mourinho's come, he's gone again. Chelsea are 10th. There's something fundamentally wrong with this team. If Mourinho has failed that time, by the way, Mourinho seemed like he was succeeding everywhere he went, right? It was before the Uniteds and the Tottenhams. So he thought, if this guy can't do it, there's something really wrong with the squad. But then Conte came, everything went really badly at the start. I think Arsenal really hammered Chelsea in one of the first few games as well, where everyone was saying, okay, this guy's definitely the wrong guy for the job. But then he totally turned it around, won the league at a canter. So notable shout to Conte, but it has to be Di Matteo.
Conte was there for what, 1 season?
He was there for 2 seasons. He finished his second
seasons.
season.
Yeah.
Second season he won the FA Cup, right?
Yeah, I think he won the FA Cup. But
I think he won the
not
FA Cup
top
against Mourinho. We won the finals as well, and I think.
I remember there was the Chelsea beat. I don't mean to bring up old wounds. Chelsea beat United 4-0 in some game, and he started jumping and celebrating at Stamford Bridge, and Mourinho got really upset about it.
Yeah.
No. This whole podcast is meant to bring up old wounds. That's the entire 90% of the point of this is to do that only. I wanted to quickly give a shout out also to Maurizio Sarri, because he's the only person I've ever known to eat cigarettes. I don't understand that. I've heard of chewing tobacco. I've never heard a person eat a cigarette while on the sideline. So I thought it was just an epic manager. But before we head out, I wanted to quiz you all a little bit on Chelsea's history, a little bit about the team, and some of the people associated with it. So a quick quiz before we head out for everyone on the call. The first question is to do with the man we've talked a lot about, Roman Ibrahimovic. So in the 2020 list of richest Russians based on their net worth, where do you think Roman Ibrahimovic stands in that list? Dada, I'll go to you first.
In the top 10 Russians,
Or
Russian
just
billionaires.
richest Russians overall. Where do
The
you think?
richest Russians?
Yeah.
Probably high up. Say maybe something like 5 or 6.
Okay.
Let's say
fair
5.
enough. Fair enough. Gui, what do you think?
I think he just misses the Europa League spot. He'll finish 8th-ish.
Malu, what do you think?
So what we are going? Whoever gets the closest answer, that person wins.
Closest gets it. Closest gets it. Yeah.
I think he should be 7th.
Okay. It's actually 10th. I don't know why. I thought it was much higher too, which is why I was kind of surprised by it. So I guess
It must be all the black money. They didn't factor that in.
Now this is a bit of a dig at you. I apologize already for this, Dada. Chelsea had an iconic signing of Fernando Torres for 50 million from Liverpool. How many Premier League goals did he score in his first season? Dada, I'll start with you.
In his first season, just in the Premier League.
Yes. Yep.
I'm gonna go for 7. I don't think it would have gotten double digits. Probably something like 7.
Okay. Fair enough. Malu.
I was going to go for 6.
Okay. Gui.
3.
Right
He got
answer
3
is
goals.
1.
What?
Great.
One
the
Premier League
yeah.
goal?
In the Premier
Ah,
League,
he
his
signed
first
in
season.
Jan. He signed in Jan.
Yeah.
So that's okay. Fair enough.
But that's
Fair enough, dude. In 19 games, 1 goal.
I do feel bad for him. I really liked him, but yeah, sadly in a half season he could get 1 goal. But you're right. His second full season he got 6, which is
So I got the second full season correct.
correct. But you don't get anything. So I'm sorry.
But wow, but that just shows 18 months, 7 goals.
I should have said that it was a half season. That is completely my fault. I do want to ask. So in Chelsea's epic journey to winning the Champions League, they also had to get to the group stage first. Can you name one other team that they had in their group stage when they were playing in the season that they won the Champions League?
A team that they played in the group stage.
Yes, even one of the 3 other teams.
Yikes! I can tell you, Napoli, Benfica, Barca, and Bayern in the knockouts.
Correct.
But group stage.
Did they have Copenhagen?
No, not Copenhagen. I'll give you a hint. There was one German team, one Spanish team, and one
Schalke?
Not Schalke, nope. And one Belgian team. Belgian team is mushkil. I had to look up that they were Belgium, to be honest with you.
Belgian team.
You said Belgian, you said German, and what did you say?
And Spanish. One Spanish.
Okay,
That was Valencia. That was Valencia.
Bilbao.
They did play Valencia. Because Drogba scored from the outer foot.
Yep, you're right.
Marta
So one is Valencia.
Yeah, 3-0.
Correct.
I think 3-0 in
Perfect.
the last game.
Perfect. So
Valencia, for sure.
it was Leverkusen and Genk. I honestly didn't know Genk. I've seen Genk consistently in the Champions League and I've never thought about where they're from.
I think Chelsea played them last year as well. Or the year before.
Yeah, they
The year before
consistently
was
made
Europa,
it.
so last year.
I said Copenhagen because I feel I've seen a lot of matches with them, Chelsea versus them. I've seen a lot of matches. So I just thought maybe they were in the group stages.
No, that's fair. So I know we probably wanted to shit even more on how much Chelsea has spent, and we've talked a lot about how much Chelsea has spent. Credit to them, they've also brought in some money for some people. Eden Hazard is the highest transfer signing out of Chelsea. Yeah. Who is the second highest after Eden Hazard?
Alvaro Morata.
That's a good guess. It isn't, but that was a good guess. He's also up there.
Diego Costa?
No, not Costa either.
Okay, Costa was a few million.
No, interestingly, it's Oscar to Shanghai SIPG. Yeah. That massive. I actually miss Oscar. Like his size and general thinness made me believe that, like, you don't have to have abs to be or maybe he had abs. I can't really tell, but he looked very, very skinny on the field. But I do miss him. Yeah. But anyway, Dada, thank you so much for coming on for this podcast. Great to get a little understanding of what's going on with Chelsea. I'm sure we'll have this another 3 weeks once Tuchel is out.
But Hiddink comes back.
Correct, exactly. But thanks so much, guys. Great to deep dive into another Premier League team. We are on all the main social media platforms. We can also hear us on you can hear us on YouTube, Instagram, but also on Spotify and all the other platforms that stream podcasts. Do leave us a like, share, leave us a comment if you want to see something else from our episodes. And with that, that's all. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thanks, Dada. Thanks,
guys. Guys, like, share, subscribe.